My brother and I are twins, and the first time Charles Clark met me, he mistook me for my brother. With a mischievous glint in his eye, he proudly held up a DVD as if it were a treasure and gave me a knowing wink. The main character in this movie has an amazing body. Let's binge watch it at your place tonight. Back then, I was still pretty naive and thought it was just a regular movie. It wasn't until the two male leads on screen started getting very intimate that I felt like a door to a whole new world had been flung open. Later on, when Charles Clark ended up being bullied to tears by me, he cursed and grumbled through his sniffles, "You little bastard. I should have watched it on my own instead of dragging you into it. Look at all the messed up stuff you've learned." Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. My brother and I are twins. When we were 3, our parents got divorced. My brother stayed with our mom, and I stayed with our dad. That's how we were separated. The summer after graduation exams, I went to visit my grandparents and hang out with my brother. One evening, my brother was called away by his friends, leaving me sprawled alone on the couch, playing video games. The doorbell rang, and the housekeeper went to open it. A cheerful male voice called out, "Auntie, is Edmund Richardson home? I'm here to see him." Yes, the young master is in the living room," she replied. Edmund Richardson was my brother. Before our parents' divorce, he used to be called Shing Chunian. My name is Benjamin Tomlinson. My brother and I look nearly identical. When we were younger, even our parents often mixed us up. The housekeeper must have thought the one who left earlier was me and that I, the one still in the house, was my brother. I was about to explain when I glanced up and froze. Standing at the door was a boy with a bright and handsome face. He wore a simple blue tracksuit, his features striking, high nose, thin lips, smooth contours. His hair was soft and messy, glowing under the warm yellow light. His smile was radiant, and his clear, upright gaze made him seem like a burst of sunshine. He was stunning. "A drink for you, Master Clark?" the housekeeper asked. "An iced Coke, please." "Thank you, Auntie," he replied with a polite grin. "Master Clark?" Clicked. He must be Charles Clark, my brother's best friend, the one he often talked about. Charles's long legs carried him across the room in a few brisk strides. Without hesitation, he plopped down beside me, threw an arm around my shoulders, and leaned in close. His warm breath brushed against my ear as he whispered, "Edmund, I got my hands on something amazing." My heart inexplicably skipped a beat. I turned slightly and found myself locking eyes with his deep, clear gaze. For some reason, the words to explain my identity stuck in my throat. Instead, I found myself asking, "Oh? What is it?" Charles grinned mischievously and leaned closer, holding up a DVD like a prized treasure. The protagonist in this movie has an incredible body. Let's pull an all-nighter watching it at your place tonight. It was just a movie. What could be so special about it? Seeing his excitement, I didn't want to ruin the mood and agreed. Sure. Back then, I was still innocent, thinking it was just some run-of-the-mill adult movie. Charles expertly led me to my brother's room, locked the door behind us, and set up his laptop to play the DVD. His exaggerated secrecy made me chuckle. It's just a porn movie, why act like we're committing a crime? But as the movie played, I started feeling something was off. Half an hour in, and the female lead still hadn't shown up. One guy kept chasing another guy around. My eyes widened when one kissed the other. And the other didn't resist? Then, the two male leads started getting very intimate. That's when it hit me, I'd just been introduced to a whole new world. On the screen, two beautiful men tangled together on a bed, their clothes half off, their movements intimate and passionate. My face turned redder than a boiled shrimp. So, two guys could do that? My heart pounded in my chest, so loud it drowned out the dialogue. I couldn't bring myself to look directly at the screen anymore. Even when the prettiest girl in school confessed to me before exams, I hadn't been this nervous. What was wrong with me? I turned to Charles. Unlike me, he looked utterly unbothered, even a little annoyed. He grumbled, "What the heck? That guy at the shop said this was supposed to be a tragic romance, but there's no plot, just straight-up action. What a ripoff. I'm never buying from him again." Seizing the chance, I stammered, "Yeah, it's not great. Let's watch something else. How about a horror movie? I pulled up an American horror film called Insidious. Charles turned out to be a scaredy cat. When a ghost started running through the house, he yelped and lunged at me, clinging to my waist and burying his face in my neck. His body trembled slightly as he muttered, "Crap, there are ghosts in the closet, under the bed, everywhere. They're doomed." Though I was stiff as a board from his sudden embrace, I still patted his back reassuringly. "Don't worry, it's all fake." By the end of the movie, Charles had screamed himself hoarse. He flopped onto the bed, wrapped himself in a blanket, and tried to act nonchalant. "My dad's out of town, so I'm crashing here tonight." I couldn't resist teasing him. "You're scared a ghost will crawl out from under the bed and grab your leg, huh?" Charles shivered but tried to sound tough. "Scared? Don't be ridiculous. I'm an adult. Adults don't get scared of ghosts." Then who was screaming their head off just now? That was, for dramatic effect. Gotta match the vibe of the movie, right? Makes it more fun. I shut the laptop with a smirk. "Sure. Well, you sleep here. I'll head to another room." As I walked toward the door, Charles shot up from the bed. "Wait, where are you going?" "Giving you the room," I said. "I'll sleep somewhere else." "No way. This bed's huge, we can share." I grinned. "So you are scared?" "Fine. I'm scared, okay? Damn it. I'm never watching a horror movie again. Just stay. I'll have nightmares if you leave." Whether or not Charles had nightmares, I couldn't say. But I definitely did. In my dream, I stumbled into a room. On the bed, two men were passionately kissing, their clothes in disarray. The scene was hazy and sultry. As I approached, the two men turned to look at me. My jaw dropped when I recognized their faces. One was me. The other was Charles. The me on the bed extended a hand and grinned. "Come join us." Horrified, I tried to run but tripped and woke up with a jolt. Something heavy pinned me down, making it hard to breathe. I struggled to free myself and realized it was Charles, clinging to me like a human pillow. His steady breaths tickled the top of my head. My cheek was pressed against his chest, and I could hear his heartbeat. My body felt hot and restless. My throat was dry. Gently, I pried his limbs off me and slipped out of his grasp. That's when I noticed something uncomfortable. Lifting the blanket, I froze. Oh no. My pants were ruined. I wanted to sneak back to my room to change my pants, but just as I was about to move, my brother pushed the door open. Panicking, I quickly pulled the blanket over myself. Our eyes met, and he froze. His gaze shifted to Charles Clark, who was still sprawled on the bed. With a teasing grin, my brother quipped, "I was going to introduce you two today, but it seems you've already gotten acquainted, and on my bed, no less." Charles, startled awake, blinked blearily at my brother at the door, then turned to look at me. Realization dawned on his face as he slapped his forehead. "Wait, you're not Edmund? He always says his twin brother looks just like him, but I didn't think you'd be this identical." I totally got it wrong. Completely unbothered, Charles threw an arm around my shoulder. "Edmund's brother is like my brother, too. I'm a month older than you guys, so I'll be your big bro from now on. But why didn't you tell me you were the younger twin last night?" Clutching the edge of the blanket tightly, I tried to keep my secret hidden. "Well, you didn't ask. My brother stepped in to cover for me. This kid's always been like this, loves pretending to be me for fun." Feigning exhaustion, I said I hadn't slept well and stayed in bed while the two of them went downstairs. Only after they left did I rush back to my room to change. Thinking about that dream, my face burned again. My brother was busy all the time, rarely around, so he asked Charles to keep me company. Maybe it was to make up for losing face that night with the horror movie, but Charles decided to take me bungee jumping to prove he was a real man. "Benjamin Tomlinson, if you're scared, just hold on tight to me. Don't cry, okay?" He teased, standing there with the sun glinting off his figure. The light wrapped around him, making him glow as if he were surrounded by golden rays. He was dazzling. I had to look away. I wasn't scared, at least, not until the moment we jumped. The rush of adrenaline made me instinctively grab onto his waist. Even after we landed, my heart was pounding erratically, my face flushed, and my palms sweaty. Charles misread my reaction as fear and kept apologizing for dragging me into such a dangerous activity. But I knew the truth. I wasn't scared, I was overwhelmed. The way we were pressed so close together, the feel of his body against mine, had thrown my mind into chaos. Charles seemed oblivious to my turmoil. To him, I was just his honorary little brother. The next day, he took me swimming. In the changing room, he casually stripped off his clothes right in front of me. For someone who looked lean in clothes, he had an impressive physique. His 8-pack abs, broad shoulders, and strong arms were accentuated by his pale, smooth skin and trim waist. My gaze lingered too long, and my face grew hot. I couldn't help but compare him to the male leads from that DVD. Charles Clark's body was even better. Noticing I was spacing out, he urged, "Hurry up and change. What are you dawdling for?" I hesitated, unable to match his nonchalance, but luckily he left for the pool without waiting for me. In the water, Charles was mesmerizing. He moved with effortless grace, his athletic body cutting through the water like a fish. Several girls around the pool stopped to watch him, captivated. For some reason, I felt annoyed. I didn't know why, but I didn't like seeing him admired by so many girls. To distract myself, I swam toward the deep end of the pool. But as I swam, a sharp pain shot through my leg. It was a cramp. My movements faltered and I started sinking. "Help! I'm cramping!" I shouted, flailing and choking on water. But no one seemed to notice. As the panic set in and my vision blurred, I saw a figure rushing toward me through the water. When Charles pulled me to safety and dragged me onto the poolside, I had already regained consciousness but kept quiet, too exhausted to move. He was frantic, pressing down on my chest to perform CPR. His water-drenched face hovered over mine, drops falling onto my skin, tickling. Just as I was about to open my eyes, I heard the swim coach say, "This isn't working. Let me do mouth-to-mouth." Charles shoved the coach aside. "No need. I'll do it myself." His lips were cold when they pressed against mine. At that moment, something inside me snapped, like a string pulled too tight finally breaking. I felt like I was soaring through clouds and diving into waves simultaneously. The dream from the other night flashed in my mind again. Now I understood why I'd felt nothing when the prettiest girl in school confessed her feelings to me. I like boys. When I opened my eyes, Charles's were red-rimmed with worry. His usual bright and handsome face was pale, etched with panic. He cupped my cheeks, his hands trembling as he lightly patted me. "You scared the hell out of me," he choked out, his voice quivering. "What would I have told your brother, your grandparents, your parents if something happened to you? I'd never forgive myself." Feeling guilty, I wiped the water off his face and tried to console him. "It's okay, Charles bro. I'm fine." No matter how much I reassured him, Charles blamed himself for my accident, convinced he'd failed to look out for me. For my brother's and my 19th birthday, Charles gave me a dream catcher. "This is a special one," he said, handing it to me. I went all the way to a temple to get it. The monk said it's been blessed for protection and good fortune. "It'll keep you safe and sound." My heart melted at his thoughtfulness. "Thanks, Charles bro," I said with a smile. My brother reached out toward Charles Clark with a feigned look of grievance. "What about mine?" Charles raised an eyebrow. "Didn't I already give you a new tablet?" My brother gave a cold chuckle. "Benjamin has a tablet too, but he also got a dream catcher." "Where's mine?" Charles swatted his hand away. "That dream catcher was special. I had to go out of my way to get it, and there was only one. The shopkeeper said greed would ruin its charm, so you're out of luck." "You've been my best friend for over a decade," my brother protested. "You've only known my brother for a few days, and you gave it to him instead of me?" "Get lost," Charles shot back. "Benjamin's the little brother. Of course, he gets the special treatment. What kind of older brother are you, competing with your sibling?" My brother rolled his eyes in exasperation. I carried that dream catcher with me everywhere. When the graduation exam results came out, my scores were disappointing. My brother was livid, pointing at the results and demanding answers. "I kept track of your progress. With your usual performance, you should have been able to apply to the same university as me. What happened? Why is your science score a 0? I sighed, equally frustrated. It's not like I did it on purpose. The truth was, the night before the exams, the prettiest girl in school confessed her feelings for me. The situation blew up, with people egging her on and others getting mad about it. Even though I turned her down, I still managed to offend one of her admirers. On the afternoon of the science exam, a group of them cornered me in an alley. By the time I'd fought them off, the exam had already started. I missed it entirely, which meant a score of 0. When I explained this to my brother, his anger only intensified. What was that girl thinking, confessing right before finals? And why didn't you tell me earlier? Even if I told you, it wouldn't change anything. I didn't want to make you angry. That wasn't the whole truth. I didn't think it mattered much since I'd never been passionate about studying. For a while, when my dad was traveling with research teams, I had too much free time on my hands. I skipped classes, spent days in internet cafes, and even considered dropping out. My teachers tried to contact my mom, but she didn't intervene. Only my brother came back to drag me out of that spiral. He wanted me to transfer schools to study with him, but my dad flatly refused. Even so, my brother didn't give up. From that point on, he supervised my studies closely. I made it to the graduation exams only because I didn't want to let him down. Now, I regretted my lack of effort. I couldn't go to the same university as my brother and Charles Clark. My grandfather and brother wanted me to study abroad, get a degree, and come back to join the Richardson family business. But I refused. I didn't want to go to a strange country alone. I wanted to be with them. So, I decided to retake the exams. When I told my brother, he sprang into action. He drafted a study plan for me and even hired a private tutor. But after just 2 days, I sent the tutor packing. Why did you dismiss the tutor? My brother was exasperated. Are you so confident you'll pass? What if you fail again? I've got this, I said, though his frustration made him roll up his sleeves, ready to tutor me himself. After days of being cooped up at home, I grew restless. I hadn't seen Charles Clark in a while, which only added to my agitation. Hey, why not let Charles bro help me study? I suggested. His science scores were even higher than yours. My brother frowned. Since when were you so close to Charles? Always Charles bro this, Charles bro that. I'm perfectly capable of tutoring you. But after just an hour of trying to teach me, my brother reached his breaking point. Are you doing this on purpose? We just went over this question. How could you mess it up already? Were your previous good grades all just luck? Hearing the commotion, I pinched my leg until tears welled in my eyes. Turning to face him with a trembling voice, I said, I'm sorry, bro. I'm just too stupid. Maybe I really did get brain damage when those guys beat me up. Before my brother could respond, Charles Clark walked in and gave him a swift kick. Why are you yelling at him? Can't you teach him calmly? Bullying your little brother, seriously? My brother threw up his hands in exasperation. Fine. I won't say another word. You deal with him. Charles took over my tutoring, and his focused demeanor was a stark contrast to his usual carefree self. Under the warm light, he patiently explained formulas and concepts. His calm tone and unwavering patience were captivating. His side profile was stunning, soft, messy bangs framed his face, and his long lashes cast faint shadows under the light. Got it? He asked, turning to meet my gaze. Caught staring, I quickly looked away. Yeah, I got it. Of course, I hadn't understood a word. Not convinced, he handed me another problem to solve. 10 minutes later, I managed to work through it. Charles ruffled my hair with a grin. See? You're smarter than you give yourself credit for. The problem was your brother's teaching method. Feeling guilty, I mumbled, No, it's because you're a great teacher. Even a slowpoke like me can understand when you explain it. That summer, I'd never loved studying so much. Charles came over daily to tutor me and often stayed the night when it got late. And with each passing day, my feelings for him only grew stronger. Because I was repeating a year, I had to return to school earlier than my brother and Charles Clark. They both came to the airport to see me off. When it was time to say goodbye, I felt a little down. Charles noticed and patted my shoulder. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. With your current progress, repeating a year will definitely get you where you want to go. You've got this. Unable to resist, I gave him a hug. Charles bro, can I still ask you questions if I get stuck? Of course. You've got my number, right? Just message me anytime. My brother, standing nearby, snorted. Alright. You two act like real brothers now. I don't remember you being this clingy before. Let's go already. The repetitive grind of senior year was made bearable by having a clear goal. Every day, I'd text Charles Clark, sometimes sending him jokes, sometimes asking questions just to talk to him. If he didn't reply for a long time, I'd feel distracted the entire day, wondering if I'd annoyed him or if he was too busy enjoying his colorful college life to bother with me. But no matter how late it was, Charles always replied. He'd usually tell me not to stress too much, that there'd always be a university for me. What he didn't know was that there was only one university I cared about, the one he was attending. Winter break was a short reprieve. I wanted to spend it with my brother, but he told me that Charles was traveling abroad with his cousin for the holidays and wouldn't be back until the next term. I felt a pang of disappointment. On New Year's Day, Charles didn't forget to message me. Happy New Year, little brother. I replied, Happy New Year, Charles bro, and sent him a photo of me and my brother. I had originally wanted to send him a solo picture of myself, but with my brother sitting right next to me, I didn't dare. Charles replied after about 10 minutes, So handsome. Even though you two look alike, the little brother's definitely better looking than the older one. That entire night, we chatted on and off. For the first time, New Year's felt lively and meaningful. After the break, I threw myself back into studying with relentless determination. I was terrified of not making it into Charles's university. The constant tension wore me down, and one day during PE, I got hit in the stomach with a soccer ball and fainted. Lying in the hospital bed in my patient gown, I received a message from Charles Clark. He had won a drone competition and sent me a picture of himself kissing his medal, his arm draped around a teammate's shoulder as he smiled at the camera. My eyes lingered on his arm around someone else, and my smile froze. So, he treated everyone this warmly? After some thought, I sat up, pulled off the top of my hospital gown, and rubbed my stomach until it looked sufficiently red. Then I snapped a photo and sent it to him. Charles bro, I got hurt and ended up in the hospital. My stomach hurts a lot. Within 5 minutes, my phone rang. What happened? How did your stomach get hurt that badly? Charles's voice was full of concern. It's nothing, I reassured him. Just stress from studying, and I wasn't paying attention when I got hit by a soccer ball. The doctor said I'll be fine in a few days. He comforted me over the phone, urging me to take it easy. I seized the opportunity to ask, Charles bro, I'm really scared I'll mess up the exams again. Can you come back to support me during my finals? Of course. I'll come back with your brother to cheer you on. Why bring my brother into this? Charles bro, I'm worried my brother's expectant looks will make me nervous and throw me off. Can you just come by yourself? He chuckled. Alright, fair enough. I'll leave your brother out of it. Just me. A few weeks before the finals, my brother called. Hey, I've already taken time off. I'll be back 2 days early to help you prep. Aren't you touched? Rubbing my temples, I bit the bullet and said, Bro, there's no need for that. It's not my first time taking these exams, and if I mess up again, it'll just be embarrassing. You coming back would only make me nervous. But what if someone corners you in an alley again? I need to be there for you. I promise it won't happen again. You really don't need to come. Ungrateful brat. He grumbled before hanging up. Sorry bro. Charles arrived in a city the night before my finals. Charles bro, my brother doesn't know you're here, does he? I asked. Nope. You didn't want him around, so I kept quiet. That night, he double-checked my ID and exam pass, fussing over every detail like an overprotective parent. The next morning, he even made me breakfast. Come eat, he called. Afterward, I'll drive you to the exam site myself. Let's see if anyone dares to mess with you this time. I'll knock them flat. Outside the exam hall, he hovered like a worried parent, giving me pep talks. Don't stress, all right? You've got this. Just do your best. I'm rooting for you. Honestly, I wasn't that nervous. He seemed more anxious than I was. Charles bro, after the exams, I have something I want to tell you. All right. I'll be waiting. Say whatever's on your mind. The finals flew by. When I walked out after the last test, I saw Charles standing outside with a huge bouquet of roses. "Over here, little bro," he shouted, waving enthusiastically. He handed me the roses with a grin. "Congratulations on finishing your exams. Now, forget about studying for a bit. Let's go celebrate." My face turned crimson as I held the bouquet, even my ears burning with heat. "What? Why was it roses?" Charles Clark took me to a bar and handed me a drink. "Tonight, drink as much as you want. If you get drunk, don't worry, I'll carry you home. Let loose." I clutched the glass, nervous about what I had to say. Maybe a drink would help. Without hesitation, I downed it in one gulp. Charles looked startled at how quickly I finished. "Take it easy. You'll get drunk too fast if you keep drinking like that. By the way, you said you had something to tell me after the exams. What's up?" Yes, I did have something to tell him. I planned to confess my feelings tonight. My palms were sweaty despite the warm June evening. Bolstered by liquid courage, I grabbed the bottle in his hand and chugged half of it. "Hey, what are you doing? You can't drink like that," Charles said, snatching the bottle back. The bar was loud, but everything felt strangely silent. I could hear my own heartbeat. I grabbed his hand, looked into his eyes, and said, "Charles bro, I like you. Will you be my boyfriend?" Right then, the bar's sound system malfunctioned, emitting a sharp, grating noise. Charles winced, covering his ears. Leaning closer, he asked, "What?" "I couldn't hear you." I said I like. Before I could finish, two men rushed over. "Charles, your cousin just busted Ziv Daneman's head open. You need to come now." "Shit. Is Alexander okay?" Charles jumped up, ready to leave. Then he turned to me and said to one of the men, "Take him home. He's been drinking. Make sure he gets back safely." "Charles bro, let me go with you." "No, you've had too much, and I'm handling a situation. Be good and go home. I'll come find you when I'm done," he said before hurrying off. By midnight, Charles still hadn't come back. I sat alone in the dark, watching the clock tick. At 1 a.m., the door finally opened. Charles walked in, and I ran to him, wrapping my arms tightly around his waist. "I thought you weren't coming back tonight." He patted my head. "Why aren't you asleep? Were you waiting for me?" "Charles, I like you." His hand froze mid-pat. I felt his body stiffen. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Benjamin, I see you as a little brother. But I already have a brother. I don't want to be yours. You're drunk. You don't know what you're saying." Terrified of hearing more rejection, I kissed him, silencing him. "No, Benjamin, this isn't right," he mumbled, trying to resist. But slowly, he stopped struggling and wrapped his arms around my waist. From the entryway to the sofa, then to the bedroom. But just as I reached for his belt, he stopped me. "We can't, Benjamin." "Charles, you like me too, don't you?" "Oh, I like girls," he said. I grabbed him, laughing bitterly. "Then why are you so affected?" Suddenly, I felt something wet. A tear. Charles covered his face with his hands and sobbed. "We can't. I'm sorry." His tears caught me off guard. Someone so bright and strong, crying because of me. I stopped pressing him and hugged him tightly. "All right, I won't push you anymore. Take your time and think it through. But Charles, please consider me. Don't shut me out completely." He didn't respond. Eventually, he fell asleep in my arms. The next morning, Charles was gone. He left a note, "I've gone back to school. Take care of yourself." I wanted to chase after him, but my dad fell ill in the lab and was hospitalized. I had to stay and take care of him. As soon as my dad was discharged, I rushed to Charles's university. I didn't care if he had made up his mind, I just wanted to see him. But when I found him, he wasn't alone. On campus, he stood close to a girl. They were hugging, their gestures intimate and ambiguous. My world shattered. After the girl left, I couldn't hold back. I stormed over and demanded, "Who was that? Why are you here? Have you eaten?" he asked, avoiding the question. "Who is she?" Charles finally stopped dodging. "She's my girlfriend. Benjamin, I told you, we're not possible. I like girls." I felt my throat tighten, but I refused to cry. "So, you don't like me at all? I've only ever seen you as a little brother." That's all it's ever been, and that's all it'll ever be. Tears streamed down my face despite my best efforts. I kicked him in frustration. Who wants to be your brother? I hate you, Charles. I ran away, feeling utterly humiliated. It was all in my head. Charles's kindness was because of my brother. He'd always seen me as just his friend's little brother. The thought made my stomach churn. Did he think I was disgusting? Even when the graduation exam results came out, I didn't care. My brother called, urging me to check. When I did, my brother was more excited than I was. You did it, Benjamin. You can join me at my university. But the thought of seeing Charles and his girlfriend every day made my chest ache. Bro, I don't want to go to your university. What? Why not? Didn't you retake the exams just to be with me? He was furious, but I couldn't explain. In the end, I chose a university in a city closer to home. It was a good school, just not the one I had dreamed of. From that moment on, years passed without me seeing Charles Clark. During holidays, he still sent messages, friendly, brotherly greetings. I always replied politely, careful not to overstep, afraid he'd find me annoying. Whenever I visited my grandfather in B City, I intentionally avoided Charles. Later, he and my brother went abroad to study together. After graduating from university, I decided against pursuing a master's degree and found a job in a city instead. My brother wasn't happy about it. Why can't you join Richardson Corp? The headquarters moved back to a city recently, and B City operations still need follow-ups. I'm running myself ragged between domestic and international work, and Grandpa keeps disappearing whenever he feels like it. Can't you help me out? I couldn't. Working at Richardson would inevitably mean crossing paths with Charles Clark. Our companies had partnerships, and I wasn't ready to face him, especially if it meant seeing him with another woman and having to call her my sister-in-law. So I stayed away. 3 years later, my brother and Charles returned from studying abroad. The Clark family business was based in B City, so Charles naturally went there to take over. Meanwhile, my brother, now CEO of Richardson Corp., stayed in a city where the headquarters had relocated. One day, my brother casually mentioned that Charles's family was pressuring him to get married. The thought alone left me unsettled. If he got married, I wouldn't even have the right to think about him anymore. This frustration followed me onto the basketball court, where my distracted state led to a bad fall. I injured my leg and ended up in a cast. Annoyed, my brother berated me while pointing at my leg. To deflect, I played the victim. Bro, I can't go to work with this leg. Our company is downsizing right now. I can't risk taking time off. Can you go to work for me for a few days? After much begging and pleading, he reluctantly agreed. Another person who came back with my brother was David Miller, a college friend who was now Richardson's deputy CEO in a city. When David heard about my injury, he visited me with gifts and brought his girlfriend along. The moment I saw her, I recognized her. She was the girl I'd once seen with Charles. Pretending to be calm, I waited until David and my brother went to the study. Then I casually brought it up. Her response left me stunned. Me? Charles's girlfriend? No way. David and I have been together since high school. I've never dated anyone else. You must be mistaken. So that hug I'd witnessed years ago? It was staged. Charles had asked her to play along. Charles Clark had lied to me. But I needed answers. Without a second thought, I hobbled to B City on my injured leg. I waited in a cafe for half an hour before Charles arrived. It's been years, Benjamin, he said, walking in with his familiar warm smile. What brings you here? And what happened to your leg? Why did you lie to me? I demanded. That girl wasn't your girlfriend, she's David's. Why did you lie? Charles froze, his eyes flickering with unease. So what if I lied? Even if I didn't have a girlfriend, it doesn't mean I like you. Benjamin, go home. I'll soon accept an arranged marriage, he added after a pause. We're impossible. He showed me a photo of him with his arranged match, a young woman from the wealthy Hu family. See? This time, I'm not lying. She's the daughter of huge technologies. It's a family arrangement, but we're both satisfied. We're even meeting for dinner tonight. If nothing changes, we'll probably get married next year. Looking at the photo, I laughed bitterly. Are you sure she's satisfied with you? Of course. But just earlier, while I was waiting for Charles, the same girl had been sitting nearby, venting to her friend. She'd complained about her family forcing her into this match, calling it a hassle and swearing she'd end it tonight. Charles Clark, I've held on to these feelings for years, always thinking you liked women. I endured the pain, avoided you, and stayed out of your life because I was afraid of being hated. Yet here you are, willing to marry someone who doesn't love you but refusing to give me even a chance. Fine, I said, forcing a smile. I wish you happiness, Charles bro. Under the table, my clenched fists dug into my palms, nails biting into skin. That evening, I went to the restaurant where Charles and the girl were meeting, an address I overheard during their earlier conversation. At 7:40 p.m., the girl arrived. Charles showed up at 8 o'clock, apologizing for being late. Sorry for the wait. Why didn't you let me pick you up? She smiled politely. It's fine. I drove myself. Their small talk was awkward, and dinner dragged on for about 40 minutes before she excused herself to the restroom. When she returned, Charles was slumped over the table, unconscious. Her friend entered, and the two of them helped him out of the restaurant. Across the street was a 5-star hotel, where they'd already booked a room. As the door to the room was about to close, I wedged it open with my crutch. 3 minutes later, the two women fled in panic. Inside the room, Charles lay on the bed, limp and flushed. Hot, so hot, turn on the AC. He mumbled, tugging at his tie and loosening his shirt. His collarbones peeked through, and I couldn't tear my eyes away. My throat went dry and I swallowed hard. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I gently touched Charles Clark's face. Charles bro, what's wrong with you? His feverish body instinctively leaned into my hand as though I were his lifeline. His dazed eyes remained shut, and his movements were clumsy. I cupped his face, speaking softly. Charles bro, open your eyes and look at me. He froze for a moment, twisting uncomfortably as if seeking my warmth. When he tried to cling to me, I stood up, pretending to leave. If you don't look at me, I'll go. He cracked his eyes open, bleary but desperate, and clung to my waist with trembling hands. His gaze locked onto mine, shimmering with unshed tears. You still recognize me? He nodded faintly. Benjamin, you're my Benjamin. The words broke my resolve. A rush of emotion clouded my mind as I grabbed his hair and bent down to kiss him deeply. Clothes scattered onto the floor as the room filled with heat and confusion. At the height of passion, Charles bit me, tears running down his flushed face. The next morning, I was jolted awake by Charles trying to sneak out of bed. Unfortunately for him, he tripped over my cast and crashed to the floor. I grinned, feeling refreshed, and crawled over to plant a kiss on his lips. Good morning, wife. His pale face immediately turned crimson. Grinding his teeth, he glared at me. Shut up, you little brat. What the hell happened last night? Wasn't I on a date? Ignoring his protests, I shamelessly hugged him from behind, nibbling on his neck. Pulling out my phone, I showed him a video of everything that had happened the previous night, the moment he was drugged. Take a look. Still think you and your date were a perfect match? She didn't even like you. Charles stared at the video, his face a mix of shock and disbelief. Damn it, that's disgusting. He slammed the bed angrily. As the blanket slipped off, the marks I'd left on his collarbones became visible. My throat went dry as my hand moved to touch one. He batted me away, glaring. You saw I was drugged and didn't stop it? I laughed. Charles bro, how did I never realize you're so naive? What's that supposed to mean? I already restrained myself from drugging you myself. When someone else did the work, why would I stop them? Charles's jaw dropped. I dropped the pretense entirely. Charles, do you know how many years I've been thinking about you? Give me a chance. Don't reject me again. I refuse to believe you don't feel anything for me. You were happy last night, I know it. Charles looked down, silent. When he lifted his head again, his eyes were red. You idiot. If I gave in to you, how would I face your brother or your family? Your brother is my best friend. Your grandfather watched me grow up. How could I do this to you? And I've blamed myself all these years. Did I twist you by mistake? Was it because I mistook you for your brother and showed you that movie? Even if I've had these feelings, I've buried them. I've tried to suppress them. Benjamin, I told you to stay away from me. Why couldn't you just leave it alone? Now, how am I supposed to let go of you? Joy surged through me. So, Charles, you do like me? Don't you? Yes. I've always liked you. Then why reject me? Why not be with me if you love me? Just because of my brother and my grandfather? Feelings are between us, not them. If you love me, why can't you choose me? Charles sighed. I don't want to lose your brother as my best friend. And I don't want to cause trouble for your family. How do you know my brother will oppose us? If I convince him, will you agree to be with me? Charles fell silent. Eventually, Charles agreed to try a relationship, but only on the condition that my brother didn't find out. I don't want him to beat me up, he joked nervously. So we started a secret relationship. I returned to a city, planning to quit my job once my leg healed and move to B City to work in Richardson Corp's branch office. That way, we wouldn't have to endure long distance. As soon as the cast came off, I eagerly headed back to the office to submit my resignation. That day, I ran into our CEO, Alexander Daneman, in the elevator. To my surprise, he smiled at me, a rare, unsettling occurrence, and even leaned in as if to kiss me. What the hell? Alexander and I had no personal relationship, just a professional one. My mind raced with questions as I frantically called my brother. Bro, what did you do to our cold, ruthless EO? He just smiled at me. Worse, he tried to kiss me in the elevator. My brother replied nonchalantly, I'll explain later. For now, stay away from him. He's your sister-in-law now. What? Excitement bubbled up. Was this true? How could I not know about such a scandalous development? Alexander, as it turned out, was Charles's cousin. But shouldn't I be the one calling him my cousin-in-law? How did he become my sister-in-law instead? As I waited in Alexander's office for my brother to explain, I tried to untangle the situation in my head. Charles was scared of my brother finding out about us, yet here my brother was, already tangled up with his cousin. The irony made me laugh out loud. When my brother arrived, he kicked me out of the office. But I had already recorded our conversation and sent it to Charles. Charles called me immediately. Your brother's insane. He told me he needed help smoothing things over with Alexander, and I thought it was something serious. But no, it turns out they've been secretly involved this whole time. Unbelievable. Later, when the group met up, my brother claimed he was only pretending to be me at work when Alexander got mad. He conveniently left out their relationship. I couldn't help but smirk. My brother and Charles really were two of a kind. Sorry bro. I already spilled the beans. That night, Charles Clark straddled me, a wicked smirk playing on his lips. Baby, he drawled, at first, I felt a little guilty for seducing you. I didn't mind letting you take the lead to ease my conscience. But now, after what you and your brother have pulled, I've decided, I'm done playing the submissive one. My cousin and I can't both be the ones getting walked all over. I wrapped my arms around his neck, grinning. Oh, so, what's Charles planning to do about it? With a predatory glint in his eyes, he bit off the buttons on my shirt and grabbed my chin roughly. So, I'm flipping the script. I'll be on top. I'm taking charge now. So, kid, you in or not? His fingers danced over my waist, tickling me until I couldn't stop laughing. Ah, ha ha ha, all right, I'm in. Have mercy, Charles, ha. I had already submitted my resignation and was just wrapping up my handovers before heading to B City. But it seemed Charles had gotten a little too attached to our secret relationship. One night when my brother was still home, Charles snuck into my room in the dead of night and slipped under my blanket. The next morning, my brother walked into the living room and saw Charles sitting casually, munching on a sandwich. You're here early, my brother said, confused. Charles smirked around a bite of food, his foot sliding up my leg under the table. The thrill of it all? Irresistible. I loved it. Eventually, my brother stopped coming home altogether and officially moved in with Alexander Daneman. With the house to ourselves, Charles no longer bothered with hotels whenever he came to a city. He always stayed with me. One day, while we were passionately making out in the living room, the door unexpectedly opened. My brother stood frozen, his face paling as if he were about to pass out. Though visibly shaken, he tried to maintain his composure. "Charles Clark, I'm going to kill you. How dare you mess with my brother?" Worried Charles might get hurt, I quickly stepped in. "Bro, I like Charles. Don't blame him." My brother's jaw clenched as he glared at me. "Shut up, Benjamin." Charles, unfazed, turned to him with a sardonic laugh. "Oh really? You're lecturing me? You're sharing a bed with my cousin, but I can't be with your brother?" The tension boiled over, and the two of them lunged at each other, fists flying. I moved to intervene, but Alexander grabbed my arm, shaking his head. "Let them fight it out. Your brother's been agonizing over how to bring this up to Charles anyway. This is the perfect outlet for all that bottled-up frustration." He handed me a bowl of sunflower seeds and guided me to the couch. "Sit. Let's watch the show." And so we did. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.